Merged mindsets.
Or perspectives.
Merged perspectives. Merged wisdom.
We'll work on it.
We'll work on it.
We'll work on it.
Exciting times over here at Merged as we start to develop a format and idea behind our podcast. David is going to be quarterbacking the podcast, and I'm going to be more of a co-host to the podcast. And the idea behind it is to feature different entrepreneurs and business owners and discuss digital marketing, but also traditional marketing.
Podcast maybe?
Yeah, we're having it.
Yeah, you guys are pretty late on this podcast, eh? We released the website on time, and you guys have got the.
It's a process.
So it's been a process for a long time.
Yeah, the podcast hasn't been prioritized.
Nor was the website, but we still got it out on the
Fair play. December 1st was the expected deadline, and here we are, mid-December.
Right. I mean, it is incredibly easy to get a podcast up and running if you think about it.
Yeah.
If we didn't have to worry about actually filming it, and we were just simply calling someone in and having a conversation, then we could pretty much get started immediately. There's a lot of steps here to get this podcast launched. It's not as easy as just developing a website.
Mm-hmm. Right now, we're just planning, and we're not even tried to make one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so we have the structure in place. Last week's meeting, we put the structure in place, and it's everything's good to go. We just need to do it. Really, the purpose of this meeting here is not to come out of it with an episode completed, obviously, but it's to get us thinking podcasts, right? And what we need to do. But to be honest, this is actually a lot easier than I thought. Think about it, right? Like, we just have a platform here. We'll just get a guest, and we'll just run with it. Oh fuck, here we go.
To a point of a website, we released a site that wasn't so good, and then we had to edit it again. Then we had to edit it again. We can do that with a podcast. You can release a podcast not to everyone that isn't so good. That can be pilot edits in the future as. It doesn't have to be content we put out.
The only problem is this.
Do you know what I mean? Like
yes and no, because if I put on a podcast and I start listening to it and give it 5 minutes of my time, and it's a complete dog shit podcast, and I just don't like it, or don't like the people doing it,
development.
I'm never going to listen to it
It's
again.
development. I'm not saying throw it out there. I mean just have internal content where we can go back. Krista can start trying edits with Sam. We can do the whole process. So then we are good at it when we do
get some practice.
We need practice. We can't just like say we're preparing with this guest and stuff like that. We need to just jump into it and make some internal podcasts.
So it's not that we're not wanting to start or test it out. We've been waiting for the mic, the USB thing to set it up as we normally would.
You guys are just behind.
I'm
kidding. I'm joking. David hates me right now.
I'm going back to work.
So there definitely has not been a rush with the podcast. And there hasn't been a rush with the podcast because for the most part, it's kind of a long-term play. You know, you got branding. First of all, that's why we do the podcast, to brand ourselves, get the Merge name out there. We're actually educating ourselves in certain areas with certain businesses. So when we try to educate them on digital marketing strategies, we're further educating ourselves on the things that have or have not worked for them in the past. The networking aspect of it. Obviously, when we're out there networking with all of these different business owners and featuring them on our podcast, we're building and growing relationships and potentially in an effort to work with them in the future. So those are a few reasons on why we're creating the Merge Marketing Podcast. We obviously don't want to be like a dime a dozen podcast, right? There's so many podcasts out there that why are people going to devote any time at all to listen to our podcast. So it has to be something there. It has to be something different. It just can't be us there talking about digital marketing for an hour, right? There has to be more value that and reason for people to want to listen to it. So that's what I'm trying to kind of research and figure out as I listen to podcasts, you know. And I think the topics are key. You got Gary Vee, how to flip like a pro, right? It's funny because, I mean, the target market that Gary's after is probably a lot of business owners as well, for the most part.
Today's Biz Tip of the Week discusses the faster way to creating real growth in 2020.
I think there's an opportunity for us to really find, you know, a message that resonates with the market that we're after. We just need to figure out what that is. And that's what we plan to do with the Merged Marketing Podcast. Stay tuned.